And on day one, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
Promises made and promises he hopes to keep. President Donald Trump ran and won on a campaign to deport almost 14 million people.
They're poisoning the blood of our country.
On this Spectrum News special, we hear from those executing the president's orders.
Let me be perfectly clear. The border is closed.
And those whose lives have been upended under these directives.
I don't want my kids to go through all that, I don't want my kids to grow up without a father.
This is the state of immigration. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Catalina Villegas. To successfully execute such a large-scale deportation operation, President Donald Trump set forth a multi-layered approach using dozens of executive actions and orders. He began by declaring a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
He also designated cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, sought to end birthright citizenship, and suspended the refugee resettlement program. Also on day one, a shutdown of the CBP One app, canceling tens of thousands of appointments scheduled into February. Day two, immigration authorities were cleared to conduct arrests in sensitive areas like schools, healthcare facilities, and places of worship. Day three, the Pentagon announced the deployment of an additional 1,500 Marine and Army troops to assist Customs and Border Patrol operations. On day four, ICE announced that 538 people were arrested and an additional 373 were detained for deportation proceedings during its first ICE raids. On day five, 2 military planes carrying 79 deported migrants arrived in Guatemala, marking the first deportation flight of the new administration. Day 9, the administration revoked temporary protected status for 350,000 Venezuelans. And a week later, on day 16, 10 Venezuelan migrants identified by the Department of Defense as members of the Tren de Aragua gang arrived at Guantanamo Bay. On day 18, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Chicago over the city's sanctuary laws, and Mexico deployed 10,000 troops to the border. On day 24, nearly 300 migrants from mostly Asian countries were deported to Panama, and Attorney General Pam Bondi filed a lawsuit against the state of New York for its sanctuary immigration policies.
New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today.
In closing out his first month in office on February 20th, the president ended temporary protected status for about 500,000 Haitians, leaving them vulnerable to deportation. Despite the legal challenges that many of these executive orders have faced, the Trump administration claims that their plans have been effective, removing tens of thousands of immigrants from the country. Those removed include recent and long-term arrivals, as well as immigrants with and without criminal records. This is the story of one man who, after 25 years and a series of mistakes, faced the consequences of his undocumented status and his crimes. Regret is a weight 39-year-old Carlos Reynoso is learning to live with.
I made mistakes in the USA, I made mistakes.
Carlos sits in this migrant shelter in Tijuana, Mexico, after being deported from California, where he left behind his wife and 3 kids, including his 4-month-old baby.
It's hard, uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen.
Carlos's life in the U.S. began when he was 13 years old, brought to this country by a single mother who gave birth to him when she was just 12, hoping to keep her son away from drugs, a vice that gripped him on and off for years.
In the most recent years, I've been sober because now I have a family to look forward to.
But his drug addiction landed him a prison sentence. It was on his release date when he received the gut punch of his life.
The day came and I was about to go home, and they told me, immigration's picking you up. That's when I realized that I was getting deported.
Praying is what he turns to as feelings of desperation and powerlessness set in, as his children who remain in California now potentially also face a fatherless childhood.
My wife cries because my daughter's growing up without her father.
More than 37,000 people were removed from the country during President Donald Trump's first month in office, according to the Department of Homeland Security. A necessity, says the president, to address what he sees as a runaway problem with illegal immigration and crime.
We're tracking down the illegal alien criminals. We're detaining them, and we are throwing them the hell out of our country. We have no apologies, and we're moving forward very fast. They're very dangerous people.
During the Obama administration, when the deportation numbers were high, Mexico buckled under the weight, remembers Father Pat Murphy, director of Casa del Migrante, where Carlos is staying.
The canal that's out here somewhere, there used to be 4,000 people living there. And when I got here, they used to say a lot of them were deportees that nobody helped.
Preempting similar sites under the Trump administration, the Mexican government set up 24 deportee aid centers, like this one in Tijuana called Flamingos, where deportees receive limited shelter, food, medical care, and a debit card with about $100 to help them get back to their hometowns. But for Carlos, home is where his family is.
I just want to make the right decision, you know, but I still haven't made that decision yet because I know if they come me crossing, I know I'm going to go to jail.
As the days pass, he has a message for any undocumented migrant in the U.S.
Just walk straight and think it twice because you don't want to be here. It's hard. You regret so many things, and I probably won't have a second chance. So if they have the opportunity right now, don't waste it.
Removals like Carlos's rely on certain levels of collaboration between local and state law enforcement and federal immigration officials. This partnership is limited in California and other sanctuary states. In the Golden State, local law enforcement cannot use their resources for immigration purposes, with some exceptions. Jamie Kennedy shows us how some departments are interpreting this law.
Amador County Sheriff Gary Redmond says public safety is his priority, which is why he's willing to break state law and contact immigration and customs officials if his department encounters someone in the country illegally.
If I get somebody that comes through my jail facility here who has committed a heinous crime, who is a threat to our community, and is somehow going to get released prior to any type of court proceedings, does not have a conviction, then my stance is I'm going to work with ICE, contact ICE.
The California Values Act, passed in 2017, bars state and local law enforcement from enforcing federal immigration laws and from contacting ICE with few exceptions, including after a person has served a sentence. Before 2017, Sheriff Redmond says they contacted ICE 3 to 4 times a year, mainly regarding undocumented people arrested at illegal grow houses. He says he respects the California Values Act and follows 99% of it, but emphasizes he's only concerned with illegal immigrants committing serious crimes.
You're not posing a public safety risk. We're not going to get involved with any type of immigration enforcement. That's not my job.
The Department of Justice has threatened to prosecute local law enforcement that fails to comply with federal immigration laws, leaving immigrant communities like those in the northern city of Davis on edge.
We know there's a lot of uncertainty.
In response, local authorities held a community forum on immigration where Davis Police Chief Todd Henry expressed his support for the state law to strengthen community ties.
I want our community to have trust in us and to know that we're going to follow the law as prescribed by the state of California.
Chief Henry is not alone in his stance. 400 miles south in Los Angeles, LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell agrees.
We talk to our partners at DHS, FBI, ATF all the time on a variety of different things. They're very clear on what our policy is and has been since 1979, that LAPD does not participate in civil immigration enforcement.
For Sheriff Redmond, he says there has been a little backlash over his stance, but overall he says he has the backing of the community and says he has sought advice about potential lawsuits from the state over his position.
I actually had a conversation with some of the supervisors and my county council. So my county council would be the one representing it. He honestly wasn't too worried about it.
Because Sheriff Redmond says his intention is in the interest of public safety.
And we'll be right back with more on this Spectrum News special, The State of Immigration. During the last 2 years of the Biden administration, U.S. Customs and Border Protection used the CBP-1 app to schedule appointments with over 936,000 migrants seeking asylum, avoiding congestion at U.S. ports of entry. But many who were unable to land appointments due to a crackdown at the end of the Biden years embarked on the uncertain journey anyway and remained stranded in Mexico with hopes of being near and ready were they to be granted an opportunity. Violence is the mile marker nearly all migrants encounter in their pursuit of the American dream.
We were on the train at night, and some people came up to us in trucks, and they forced us off with their guns.
Kidnapped along with 7 other migrants on a northbound Mexican freight train, 34-year-old Eduardo Luis Alvarez spent that night on the floor inside a clandestine house, his kidnappers demanding ransom. But his military training kept him calm enough to send an SOS before their cell phones were taken away. There were over 1,300 reports of torture, kidnapping, rape, extortion, and other violent attacks on migrants traveling through Mexico over a 6-month period in 2023. Freedom and safety is what Eduardo has been searching for since he left his native Colombia in July of last year, after he says his life was threatened by an armed group who sought to forcefully recruit him.
If you don't leave, you die.
But now, after over a 3,000-mile journey and with the United States in sight, the Trump administration has moved to end refugee and asylum programs, under which Eduardo hoped to qualify. President Donald Trump says the U.S. is overwhelmed with migrants, as the Biden administration allowed over 1 million to come in under these programs.
Joe Biden didn't just open our borders, he flew illegal aliens over them to overwhelm our schools, hospitals, and communities throughout the country.
Now, immigration lawyers in Mexico, like Darinka Carballo, director of Agencia Migrante, are trying to help these migrants figure out their next steps.
We have to support them and lead them through that moment of acceptance that Mexico is going to be their new home, or help them get back home.
But some migrants say they will cross anyway.
Right now, it's whatever God wants. If I can't find a way to come in legally, I'm going to have to enter illegally.
A risk that many migrants see as much less dangerous than going back home. Joining us now to discuss the potential outcomes of this immigration crackdown is Jean Rees, co-director of the USC Immigration Clinic and clinical associate professor of law. Professor, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Tell me how this, the beginning of the second administration compares to the first.
I think what I've started referring to as Trump 1.0, the previous administration seems fairly mild. There is a lot more preparation that seems to have been done prior to the second administration. There were a lot of lawsuits in the first Trump administration that stopped President Trump from achieving some of the goals. And I think that the administration has learned from that and is seeking other methods, other ways. I think also one of the potential strategies is just to overwhelm the courts with so many issues that it's going to be hard to stop all of them.
Talk to us about how these laws, including the Alien Enemies Act, have created a pathway to increase deportations.
So there are constitutional rights for non-citizens in the U.S. One of those is due process. Now, the amount of due process depends. Basically, the president is calling upon wartime power to say we've identified these group of people that pose a threat, and I can arrest and remove them with very little oversight of the judicial courts. In immigration court, the government has to show someone's removable. That person can seek asylum, may be able to seek something called cancellation of removal. So there's more opportunity to obtain some sort of protection against deportation, to have a hearing, to put on witnesses. That is not the case under the Alien Enemies Act.
Now, President Obama deported nearly 3 million migrants. He was nicknamed by some deporter-in-chief, but he still enjoys a lot of support by Democrats and minority groups. Tell us, how is his approach different from President Trump's?
It's not too different. Under the Obama administration, the National Guard was used for administrative tasks at the border. There was prioritization of people from Central America. The biggest difference is there was a line that was drawn at some point. I think that the Obama administration had been presented with the idea of family separation at the border and had not gone forward with that as a tactic, and the Trump administration did. Immigration has become a lot more polarized than under the Obama administration, and so I think maybe more people are just paying attention now as well. We do have these kind of unprecedented moves where I think the Obama administration used the immigration law in a way that was aggressive against some people, but wasn't going outside of kind of how immigration law had traditionally been used. Also, that the surge to the southern border really started under the Obama administration and then just increased. Caravans. Yeah, and so under the Trump and Biden administration, there was just these unprecedented levels that hadn't been seen before. And so there was a call for more drastic action as well.
With that in mind, what legal avenues do asylum seekers and refugees have at this point?
For people who are coming to the U.S. to seek asylum, which is a right, it's pretty much suspended right now. We had a restriction of that right under the Biden administration with the, only allowing people who had the CBP-1 app to approach at a port of entry and seek asylum. So that was really limiting. And now we have a cancellation of that CBP-1 app process. So it's very hard for people to come to the border and seek asylum right now. And part of all of these actions that are making it harder, that are suspending, that are in litigation to see whether it's even lawful, the first kind of foremost effect is really deterrence, and also kind of instilling fear in people who are in the U.S.
What is the current state of immigration?
I think that the immigration system is broken, and it has needed reform for a long time through congressional acts, which have not happened. It's not getting better, and the system is not equipped for what is happening. I'm seeing a polarization of the immigration conversation. Immigrants are being more viewed as lawbreakers, criminals, danger. And so we're really moving away from human rights considerations, humane processes. And I think that there is probably desperation on both sides that are driving people further apart. But unfortunately, I think it's just making the existing problems in the system worse.
Professor Jean Rees, thank you so very much for joining us. Really appreciate your time and your expertise on this subject.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
When we return, we hear directly from those that are in charge of safeguarding our busiest port of entry and its borders. Encounters between the U.S. Border Patrol and migrants have reached their lowest level since tracking began 25 years ago. Lidia Pantaces has the first-hand account of an agent that is patrolling our southern border and tells us what those operations look like today.
Growing up in a border town, as Stephanie Solano always knew she wanted a career that focused on protecting people. Now, as a Border Patrol agent, she says her job isn't just about safeguarding the United States. It's also about protecting those attempting to cross the border. One of her biggest concerns, smugglers.
They don't really care about, their safety. As long as they have money and they're willing to cross over and come here illegally, then yeah, they'll put your life in danger. They don't care if it's cold, hypothermia, a heat stroke. They just want their money.
In her time on the front lines, there are images she can't forget.
Like we have pregnant females coming over, crossing illegally, and just, the fence, once they get up to the fence, it's higher than the first one, and they get stuck up there.
One major change, 6 miles of concertina wire, razor-sharp metal capable of cutting through skin. Others include the use of stadium lighting, aerial surveillance, and the increase in the presence of troops at the border. San Diego Sector Chief Patrol Agent Jeffrey Stalnaker also commented on Mexico's recent support.
Their continued efforts to create a safe, secure, and prosperous border have directly benefited us here in San Diego.
And so far, border agents say it's made an impact. At the San Diego sector, the busiest area of the border in the country, they're now apprehending about 30 to 40 migrants a day, down sharply from this time last year when they encountered 1,400 people daily. The decline began toward the end of the Biden administration, but Stalnaker admits tighter security is pushing migrants to take even more dangerous routes.
The number on the water has gradually increased. We do anticipate that as we continue to lock down the border here and secure it, we will most likely see a greater increase on the maritime environment.
Agent Solano has seen the deadly consequences. Boats capsizing, people drowning, all after paying smugglers up to $25,000 for the journey.
So what is to their advantage is the weather, fog. So San Diego, knowing there's a lot of fog that rolls in, and so that's one of the advantage that they have, and that's when they'll try and get us the most.
For Solano, the drop in crossings is a welcome change.
It is because they're not putting their lives in danger anymore.
And with migrants out of the hands of smugglers, that also keeps agents like Solano safe.
The changes in our immigration policies will inevitably affect the makeup of our country, an evolution that we at Spectrum News will be following closely. I'm Catalina Villegas. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.